I was never one for grudges. Living by the lake for 30 years taught me to be patient. You watch the seasons come and go. You watch the water rise and fall. You come to understand that time doesn't favor those who rush. But there's a difference between patience and being walked on. And the day the HOA broke ground on their vacation paradise was the day I realized I'd been too quiet for too long. My land has been in my family since the 1930s. Great-granddad built the first cabin here with his own hands and dug the channel that fed the lake from the nearby spring. When the dam was built in '42, it was just a pile of stones and some stubborn logs, barely engineering by today's standards, but it held. It turned a wet, useless patch of valley into something alive, a blue, glimmering stretch of water that reflected every star at night. It was ours, not the government's, not some developers. Ours. When my father passed in 2002, I inherited the property, 200 acres, including the lake and dam. I maintained both. I improved the dam, poured concrete, added a manual release valve. I paid the taxes. No one else lifted a finger, but suddenly, in 2020, some city slicker development group incorporated an HOA, Golden Pines Lake Association and bought a few parcels from some desperate cousins of mine. Land right on the edge of the lake. I didn't think much of it. I figured they'd build a house or two. But within a year, bulldozers arrived. Not one or two cabins. 79. 79 identical, ugly, overpriced vacation cabins, squatting along the lake like toads. They clear-cut the pines, paved roads, installed boat docks, even put up street lamps. Worst part? They didn't ask. They didn't negotiate. They informed. I still remember the letter. Dear Mr. Carson, we are pleased to welcome you as a neighbor to the Golden Pines Lake Association community. As the primary landowner adjacent to our lakeside development, we trust you will honor your duty to maintain the lake level and dam in accordance with our mutual interests. Mutual interests. As if I'd signed anything. As if the lake was theirs by default, because they were loud, rich, and numerous. I called the head of the HOA, some smarmy guy named Keith Danner. He talked like a politician and laughed like a man who thought I couldn't read a contract. I told him plainly, the lake is fed by a spring on my land, and the dam that forms it is on my land. Legally, the lake is mine. Recreational easement doesn't mean a damn thing when the HOA has no water rights. He said, We'll see what the courts say, Mr. Carson. I'm sure you'll come around. I didn't go to court. I went to the dam. It wasn't revenge at first. It was clarity. If they wanted to test the law, fine, but until a judge told me otherwise, I had every right to control my land and my water. So I walked down the rocky slope, unlocked the rusted wheel, and slowly, carefully, opened the release valve. That was late spring. The lake didn't empty overnight, of course. It took time. The spring kept feeding in, but the dam was bleeding it out faster than it could fill. Within days, the docks sat on dry mud. By week 2, kayaks were abandoned on cracked earth. By week 3, the fish were gone, either dead or fled to deeper pockets that dried up soon after. You'd think someone would have come to speak to me. Apologize. Offer compromise. Instead, I got letters. Legal threats. HOA meetings held without inviting me, but mentioning me. I watched one from my laptop, streaming it live, as Keith ranted about non-compliant landowners and restrictive countermeasures. They still thought they had power. That was the most galling part. A few of the cabin owners tried to stay the summer. I watched them drag canoes across the mud, kids poking sticks into the sun-baked sludge, the illusion shattered. Without the lake, the cabins were worthless. Just rows of prefab boxes facing a dry hole in the earth. By August, half of them were listed for sale. No buyers. By September, abandoned. And me. I sat on my porch each evening, whiskey in hand, watching the sun set over the exposed lake bed. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. No one had asked the lake if it wanted 79 scars along its shore. Now it had answered. Autumn rolled in, crisp and indifferent. I got another letter, this time from a real lawyer. I skimmed it, then laughed. They wanted an emergency injunction. Said I was intentionally sabotaging their investment. Damn right I was. I didn't respond. Instead, I made some calls of my own, to a local paper, a few environmental groups, even an old buddy at the Water Rights Board. I showed them photos, explained how the HOA had clear-cut shoreline buffer zones, used illegal septic systems, and were draining the aquifer faster than it could recover. The story got picked up. Not national headlines, but big enough. Man drains lake to fight off HOA cabins. It spread just far enough to shame a few board members into silence. Keith even tried to spin it, claiming I was a militant squatter, but the deed records shut that down quick. By winter, the cabins were iceboxes. Most of the pipes froze. One even caught fire, with stove gone wrong. No lake access meant no insurance payout. I heard the owner sued the HOA. I still hadn't closed the dam. Snow came late that year, but heavy. It coated the empty cabins in silence, like a judgment. I took walks down the muddy banks, shotgun slung just in case, but never saw a soul. It was as if the lake had swallowed them up, not the other way around. In spring, I closed the valve again. Slowly, quietly, the water returned. Not all at once. The spring needed time. But by June, the birds were back. Frogs sang at night. I stocked it with trout, paid for it myself. Not for the HOA. For the lake. I posted a hand-painted sign on the old boat launch. Private lake. Trespassers will be prosecuted. A few cabins were still occupied. Holdouts, or folks too broke to move. I didn't bother them, as long as they stayed respectful. One old couple even brought me fresh eggs as thanks. Said they hated the HOA from the start, but had sunk their savings into a quiet life by the lake. I let them fish, under one condition: no boats, no motors, no noise. That summer was peaceful. Keith tried once more to push a lawsuit, but the state had already ruled in my favor. Water rights are tricky, but simple when you've done your homework. Turns out, the original deed from 1931 included riparian control and spring access. The HOA never had a leg to stand on. Eventually, they folded. One by one, the cabins were sold off at a loss, or foreclosed. Some were dismantled, hauled away. Others rotted in place. The roads cracked. The street lamps flickered out. Golden Pines Lake became a ghost development, a half-forgotten cautionary tale. And me. I'm still here. Same cabin. Same porch. Same lake. I don't regret it. Not a damn second. People think they can take what they want, pave paradise, and call it progress. But out here, the land remembers. The water remembers. And sometimes, you've got to remind folks that not everything is for sale. Let them build their dreams on someone else's lake. This one already has an owner.